Paul. The clashing over what really should be allowed to happen or what should you personally believe you should have the ability to do. So what we did is we broke that down by orthodox and progressive beliefs. Now, going back, we had orthodox, changing of the times. The example that we used was breastfeeding. So orthodox is changing of the times, adapting to the situation, which means you should be able to do what? Breastfeed in public. That aligns with the conservative view or the liberal view. Sydney? Liberal. Conservative view fits more with the progressive side. So just a little bit further looking at the issues that they do have kind of different views on, the different camps, progressive and orthodox. Abortion is a big one. Now, with all of these, we're kind of going this direction with ideology too. Abortion, we have a progressive view and an orthodox view, but those also fit very well with liberal and conservative viewpoints. So abortion, they disagree on that. Legalization of marijuana, decriminalization of marijuana, other drugs. That is a distinct orthodox and progressive view. So orthodox means that we should stay the same. Tradition. Drugs are bad. They're always bad. They always will be bad. They harm society. Orthodox sticks to the times. Progressive looks for the adjustment. Changing of the times, period. So that is your liberal to conservative view as well. Same with abortion. Funding for the arts, where you're looking at, so Michelangelo's sculpture of David. What is David in that sculpture? He is really naked. I think completely naked is a good way to say it. Now, from an orthodox view, you attach that maybe to funding, maybe not supporting public money going towards that, where a progressive view looks at it more like it's art. It's just art, nothing more. So let's contribute funds for places like that. Yes, Noah.
Yeah, it's just, aren't a couple of these things more traditional than progressive? Like, isn't it weird that the Orthodox views against them? Like, legalization of drugs, for example, like marijuana, for example, wasn't illegal until like the 40s.
I think that legalization the making of marijuana being illegal, I would say still, and maybe somebody else disagrees, but I feel like that still follows the idea of it being an orthodox view, just solely because I don't think marijuana was a popular, easily accessible drug. So I think it still follows like the taboo, I guess, view of an orthodox view on drugs.
Also art, a lot of art is old.
A lot of art is old.
Doing art for literally our entire history.
But looking at how old art is, I think, think of old time artists. What artists traditionally get challenged by the norms of their time. I mean, regardless of who they are, when they were, they traditionally got challenged by, I'm talking the ones that we still refer back to today. They continually got challenged. Olivia?
When Michelangelo was painting the Sistine Chapel, the Pope at the time really hated him because all of his people were real. And so Michelangelo kind of like flashed back by part of the Sistine Chapel, part of the painting in it is that Pope being eaten by a snake. But it wasn't all of him being eaten by the snake, it was just
Partly the Pope was getting eaten by a snake. I did not know that part of my art history. Okay, so we're talking about the culture. We're now a focus on government. We have this view as a culture, right, for what government ought to do, not the policies that we're dividing. That's where we're headed. But up here with the government, and we saw that from the day one with the graph, the trust in government. How much do we trust the government? It consistently continues to go down. People have stopped trusting the government. And what is important as a distinction, and think about this, okay? It's an important distinction, is it is the people, not the government, that people don't trust. Okay, so think about that. What that means is We trust the presidency. We trust the legislative branch. We don't trust the president as much. We don't trust the members of Congress as much. We trust the system. We trust the game. You hate the player, not the game, right? Don't hate the player, hate the game. No, you don't trust the player. You do trust the game. And that's exactly what is happening right here. And it's been since the 50s. You know, we walked through those scenarios last week. What has caused that? After World War II, everybody was just, rally around the flag, Pearl Harbor, and defeating the Nazis in Japan. That was a huge boost in public support for the government. But then we started to get into the Cold War. Then we started to get into Korea, then Vietnam. The trust broke away. And then even further with Watergate, and then Clinton and his impeachment issues, it has made it where it's very easy to not trust the government with what they're doing, the government officials. All right, so last little bit for our handouts is looking at efficacy, looking at tolerance. We had a graph of the level of efficacy. So the idea behind political efficacy is, do we believe in our system, and do we believe that they will respond when we know exactly how to go about making the difference? So internal, that's within you. Do you know enough about government to make a difference? Then you look at the external. Yeah, you might, but do they want to respond to you? Do the public officials want to care about what everyday people actually believe? And that is an important part of, it's a measurement, right? We looked at the graph. It's a measurement. What is the level of efficacy? If we have a high level of internal and external efficacy, we think that as a country, we know how to make a difference, and we know that the government will respond. That is a pretty important part of a democratic system, yet we're kind of, it's kind of echoing the trust in government. We're starting to lose that faith that the government will actually respond to what we want. Okay, last little bit, political tolerance. One of your questions was just to look at it. You didn't actually have to write anything down. But looking at political tolerance. So what does it mean to be politically tolerant? Brendan? What does it mean to be politically tolerant?
To think that even if someone disagrees with you, they are allowed to say whatever they want.
Is that important for the United States? Yes. But what is happening to us? You're reading that article about it right now. What are we becoming more and more and more? What was that word that the article talks about? Polarized. More polarized. We should be able to listen to the other side, talk about it, be tolerant of it. And, it kind of goes back to the whole, I might not agree with what you're saying, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. That's kind of a big part of our culture. Now, the situations that I asked you to look at, right up here, allowing these to happen. What would you do? If you had to pick, would you allow them to happen? And it shows you the difficulty with the government.
You kind of have to allow all of them, because if you allow the government to stop one group from saying something, no matter how abhorrent it is, it opens the door for them to stop other people from talking, because what's acceptable depends largely on who's currently in power. If, just to give you an example, someone who's less tolerant of, say, gay people, came in power, a lot of anti-gay rights people got into Congress, they could stop gay rights groups from it.
So across the board then, if you own a public, in terms of our political tolerance attitudes of this country, if you own a public, or not own a public place, if you have a city hall that it allows groups to go protest there or hold meetings or whatever, if you were in charge of deciding who could go, what do you have to say to all of these groups? Either yes to all or no. It's not a pick and choose. This is not a pick and choose. It is either a yes or a no. Private citizens are completely different. You can choose to, if it's something where it's your own group, you can choose to allow this group, a right to life group opposing abortion. You can choose to allow them and not this group. But if it's a public place, a public city hall, tax dollar supported venue, it's either yes to all or no to all. There is no, and that's why, the KKK is a very unpopular group, a hate group. They are supported. They've been supported multiple times by the government. They continue. I think political officials, and this goes back to what Noah was saying, they know who they represent. They know the idea of political culture and how important it is to be tolerant of the minority's opinion. Tying it right back to the factions that Madison was talking about. It is important to acknowledge that they exist, not to trample them just because they're small, because sometimes they might be small, but they also might be, I guess, the correct mindset. And there are time and time again examples of this happening. Does anyone know are you familiar with the Snyder versus Phelps Supreme Court case with the Westboro Baptist Church, Fred Snyder? Does anyone know who he is? He just died. The Westboro Baptist Church is the church that protests at Marines' funerals, soldiers' funerals, that has signs like "Thank God for Dead Soldiers" and "God Hates Fags" and "America Deserved 9/11." And they go to soldiers' funerals, and their whole focus is homosexuality happens in the United States, which means the government allows homosexuality to happen. The soldiers protect the country, therefore they protect homosexuality. So that's why they protest military funerals. But went to the Supreme Court because the Marine's father had a big problem with this, as I think a lot of people in here probably do. And the Supreme Court, their job is not to decide whether it's right or wrong morally. Their job is to follow the Constitution. And in a unanimous decision, they said, yeah, we know exactly why this bothers people. It's their First Amendment right, though, to protest. So we can't do anything about it. And I think overwhelmingly, the majority opinion of the country, probably not even majority, an extreme majority, feels like that's wrong and inappropriate. But there's nothing that we can do to stop it other than the advocacy that I think Shane Cantu's funeral is a good example, where they call, they're a motorcycle group, and they go around to these funerals around the country trying to set up in a line, basically, so Westboro Baptist can't cross the line to go protest at the funeral. So these groups, they are small at times. Sometimes they're big, but you don't get to pick and choose. And I think that's the important distinction here. So, any questions?